This is the California Liberty Project podcast.
So welcome back to the California Liberty Project. Once again, I am really glad that you've joined us again on this growing podcast devoted to liberty issues here in California. Liberty issues, some of which are political, some of which are cultural. Many of them are local and regional issues that we've talked about before. And today, once again, I'm really glad to be joined by yet another great guest, someone whose work that I stumbled upon on Twitter, X, what have you. Many of you have probably seen his quips, his ruminations, and his thoughts on X as well. That caught my eye. And I said, this individual sounds like someone who with some interesting things to say. And I'd love to have him on the podcast. And we started talking and he agreed to come on. So I am very glad to be joined by Mike Netter. Mike, welcome very much to the California Liberty Project podcast.
Greg, it's a pleasure to be here today. I just love the name, Liberty, right? Because that's what we're looking for in California, is kind of the freedom to make our own choices. And that's a lot of really what got me started in politics and culture, as you put it, to begin with.
Yeah, we've got our work cut out for us, no doubt, right? And I know that you are in the fight. So before we jump into some specifics and what we're doing here in California, what your organization is doing, and of course, I should mention that you are with Rebuild California. We'll be talking about the great work that your organization is involved in. Would you please give the listeners like a little bit of your background, like who you are and how did you get involved with what you're doing today?
Well, it's strange in a way, right? Because I'm one of the main people, along with Owen Heatley. There were 6 of us that about 3 years ago just looked around and got kicked off at kind of the way the state was going. We had one-party rule and politicians didn't listen to us. So we got together a committee who had met through, shall we say, random walks of life, no political experience, and we started the recall of Gavin Newsom. And the interesting part is my background. I studied physics, studied quantum. I'm a math guy and a science body, worked for a major corporation for about 30 years. You know it today as Staples. It was Corporate Express in the day. And Oren is a retired sheriff. We have Dan, a tech guy, Robin, an accountant, people that had nothing to do with politics. And I want to make that, and I do a lot of TV, radio, etc. And my major takeaway is really that. We were told to begin with that, hey, you guys are a bunch of political hicks. You don't know what you're doing. It takes $20 a signature. It's going to take 25 million just to get this on the ballot. We started with $1,000 and we got it on the ballot for 70 cents a signature. What's interesting, Greg, and the major takeaway here is that, one, don't believe the political pundits. The state is in the shape it's in, and frankly, a lot of the country, because we call it the swamp, we call it this and that. But the reality is any business, whether it's energy, office products, distribution, gets stuck in doing things a certain way. And we broke the mode in politics. And by the way, funny story, we didn't know until we launched the petition, doing some unique stuff launching it that we thought. And we got a call about the second day we launched it from a political pundit who says, this is how stupid you people are. You have no money. That's not true. We had $1,000. Oren and I threw $500 each. So what the hell, right?
Sure.
And if you get this accomplished, it will be the largest initiative in American history. Second only in the world, by the way, to Brexit over in UK. And it would take the largest volunteer effort in American history. And who the exploited leader are you guys? So time went on, and what we discovered is that we all know politics is broken, but because we operated outside the bubble, because we brought in some people with political experience and fired them, because we used this is going to be shocking. Write this down if you're listening to it. Full common sense. And focused on things that were about the people of California and their everyday lives. The recall of Gavin Newsom caught fire. Now, I got to admit, we had some amazing help from one of the best politicians of all time. You know who that is, right?
Who is it? I have some guesses.
Because one of them poster child, a once in a lifetime opportunity for somebody who literally says they stand for X, does Y. With COVID came along, but he was so inept that he didn't realize the pulse of the people. And that really is a reflection of what we have today in California. We have one party rule. And we have so many, we call them limousine rebels, call it what you want. But people not in tune with what ordinary people face like you and I do, or your listeners, every day of the week. And we'll rebuild California today. A lot of R's there. Recall Gavin 2020. We established a brand, and we established a brand using modern marketing techniques that we're trying to get politics to do today to kill one party rule. The reality is this. See Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar, Mao Tit's tongue. When you have one party, like you do in California, that has a supermajority on both sides, that has all the state seats, I don't care if you're right or left, it ends badly. And that's what you're seeing in California. So today, as I finish this very long introduction, it's nice to have time. We've changed the name of our movement, if you will, to Rebuild California. And Rebuild California, we're technically nonpartisan, but we're conservative. We're a statewide organization, frankly, doing a lot of the work that the Republican Party should be doing, but they're too busy trying to raise money to keep themselves fed.
Right. Yeah, I think there are a lot of issues there with the state GOP. You will find no disagreement there from me. And I think from a lot of conservatives, libertarians, grassroots activists, 100%. So you're with Rebuild California. And we heard a little bit of your intro. How'd you guys do this? How'd you get going? That's great. Let me ask you right off. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say is, so we set the table there. We set the stage. What are some of the key issues then that we really need to focus on in late 2023 going into 2024?
Well, let's talk about a couple things today, okay? There's something I call strategic to transactional. So strategy is the issues itself. And I want to kind of mold in this interview what we did, the issues, which all boil down to commonalities in here in a second. And there's a strategy and there's transactional steps. So most of the issues that I talk about, everybody agrees with, okay? And I'll get to them in 1 second. And I boil them down into certain points. We have the 5 pillars on our website, but I do a lot of radio, Outrage, Friday nights, KABC, a couple quick plugs here. And I do SOS Los Angeles, and Save Los Angeles, where our theme is basically about the basic issues. And the challenge we have is the mechanics of getting the message out to the bulk of people that don't care. Before I go into what some of those issues are, let me tell you what a lot of people don't realize, who the biggest political party is in California. Well, of course. Well, no, the Democrats indeed have 10 million registered voters, and the Republicans 5.3, and there's 6.5 million in between. But the biggest really political movement in California is the party of apathy. It's the party of people really not caring. And voter turnout or political interaction, because most people really don't give a damn. They only give a damn when it gets in front of their face. That's why things like homelessness and crime bubble to the top of the news. So let's take the 5 pillars that we talk about and boil them down into 4 points. that California does horribly. And I start them off kind of on a facetious rant, if you will, because that's really what the public needs to understand. Let's start with water. Everybody likes water. Regardless of political party, religious affiliation, people like water. California does a horrible job at managing water. I really know of nobody that says, hey, I don't like water. You need water to bathe, and water also produces electricity, and pretty clean electricity. Now, part of the problem in California is apparently California government is really shocked by the fact that water produces electricity. It seems like the Department of Power never got together with the Department of Water and said, hey, all the water you're sending out to sea is causing these big things not to spin, which produces hydropower, which is electricity. And then the environmental department goes, well, hey, isn't that kind of clean electricity? And they go, no, we want solar and these other things. So the reality is water as a basic thing, California does a horrible job managing it. And there's lots of reasons why we have, but that's the reality of it. So let's start with the fact and all agree that we all need water, like water, and water produces electricity. And Greg, I don't know about you, but anybody listening today, with the exception of the Amish, and they're probably not listening to this, like electricity. It makes our computers glow, keeps our food fresh, does many amazing things for me. And the problem we have in California is we do a horrible job at managing electricity. We have 3 utility companies, really 4 if you count DWP, right, that have tons of scandals against them, done things like burn down homes, mine included, down in the South, right? They have corruption at DWP, yet they contribute to these politicians. And Greg, I don't know of anybody, and you can correct me if I'm wrong if you're listening to this, who waits by the mailbox once a month because they're so excited to see the utility bill. Oh, look, nobody likes the utility companies. But the problem is that as a monopoly, right, they have manipulated our government into poor management of the electrical grid. We did a movie going down a slight rabbit hole. Got to give a plug to Lewis Carroll once in a while, right?
Absolutely.
Was that called Grid Down, Power Up with Dennis Quaid back in January. I did a whole series of radio shows on this. Part of the problem, which is a bipartisan issue that Congress has voted on, and other people have voted on in the California legislature, I don't care how electricity is generated. Like solar, it's wind power. Look, at the end of the day, I just want my lights to stay on. And we have a power grid that is older than me times 2. And if you want to know how old I am, I didn't meet Ben Franklin, but I did meet his son, as the old saying goes, right? So our power grid creaks and groans and goes down, has overhead power lines, and we keep with this corruption that we're going to improve the way we transmit electricity, but we don't talk about that. We have our eye on how we generate electricity, and that's one of the problems when it comes to electric power. A basic thing, water and power that touch everybody. Let's go now to homelessness. And unless anybody listening to this owns a tent company, if you do, you might find this offensive, right? Because it's a great business model when it comes to homelessness, but homelessness just doesn't work. It doesn't work for the people that are homeless, and it doesn't work for the people who have to suffer with people in the street. And there's lots of reasons for it. But the reality is, if I can recall and get on the ballot, one of the most powerful elected officials in the United States, how come we could spend $17 billion in California the last 3 years, and under Gavin Newsom, Janice Hahn, and the Board of Supervisors, homelessness keeps rising? It is an undisputable fact that of any state in the union, we have the highest homeless population rising with a bullet. And there's additional reasons we do that. But the reality is that's, again, a basic fact that no one likes that we don't solve. And I'll get into these issues a little bit deeper here, but let me continue with the next one. Again, everybody likes water, likes power, and is probably against homelessness, even the homeless people themselves. Now let's go on to something else that I find personally really offensive. Are you ready?
Ready.
No one likes being stuck, Greg. It's pretty much against we learned to duck. Why we were taught that at a young age, duck. And crime is out of control. And you can spin data any way that you want. But whether it's smash and grab, which literally, I want you to think about this. We have mobs of people running into stores, stealing stuff. LA is proud because the record high homicide rate ticked down. We have Cadillac converters being stolen out of cars, and we have the city of Baltimore and Nithya Raman ranking against the car companies because the Cadillac converters are so easy to steal. Even criminals in general are against themselves getting shot, but that's another thing that just doesn't work out. And then there's the additional pillar of parental rights. You ought to be able to know what's going on with your kids. And I don't care if Sam wants to be called Sally or Sally wants to be called Sam, which frankly is just a bit weird. When that happens, the parent has a right to know about that and input. There are kids. These are, in a way, the 5 basic pillars that are on the site of Rebuild California, boil down to things that, frankly, 90% of the public, regardless of political party, would agree on.
Yeah, and I think that's really smart to boil things down because, again, these are not partisan issues. So let me ask, when you were going through all of those, and I appreciated hearing you kind of boil it down, when we're talking about, say, water and energy issues, and I've had on some other great guests on this podcast, we've talked about these issues. So the question comes up, once we've kind of gone into, okay, what are some of the specifics? What's happening on the ground? We kind of talk about the problems. Then the question arises in my mind, Mike, why? Why is this happening? Is it incompetence purely? Is it malfeasance? Is it misfeasance? Corruption? Why are these things that seem so fundamental to governing, right? Democrats, even Republicans, everyone talks about governing, right? Oh, we have to govern well, effectively. At the end of the day, I don't think these people have an interest in governing at all. Specifically, legislators in Sacramento, Newsom, certainly not Newsom. But yeah, let me reset that for you. Why is this happening? These are such obvious problems. They're not partisan necessarily. As you mentioned, everyone needs to drink a glass of water every morning. So why is this happening? Corruption? Incompetence? Malfeasance? What's the point behind this? Why are we all suffering?
Look, I have an old saying that says it doesn't matter if it's inept or evil. Let's put on, for example, someone gets shot. It's manslaughter and murder. Why I lose for you? Manslaughter means you didn't have intent. Murder means you did. The guy that's dead is still dead, okay? There's a fine line all the time between if something is inept or something is evil. Fair enough, okay?
Yeah.
And everything is a combination of both. Let's talk about California politicians, all right? Here's the problem we have with California politicians. They use Californians as a stepping stone to their next job. And this is the biggest problem. They don't care about the everyday life of Californians. Give you some examples. We all know the story of Gavin Newsom, right? He's worked his way up the ladder, and who knows what his next intent is. But even his approval rating recently, per the LA Times, and I apologize for cussing on your show, but LA Times itself says, oh my God, his approval. Why? He's not actually governing California. He's running around the country. He's going to China and Israel. That's not even why the people allegedly elected him. But wait, there's more. Back in the day, which was just a few years ago, we have somebody who you may be familiar with, Kamala Harris. Let's talk about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, DA San Francisco, gets elected. Can't wait to be elected Attorney General. As soon as she's elected Attorney General, she's running for Senate. Gets elected for Senate, Gavin Newsom has to backfill with Xavier Becerra. Think about this. He backfills with Xavier Becerra. As soon as Camilla's in office, less than a year, she's running for vice president. She goes to vice president. Gavin Newsom then has to backfill, right, her Senate seat with Alex Padilla, who was Secretary of State. He then backfills with Shirley Weber. But wait, there's more. We took Xavier Becerra, who was backfilled, and he goes to Washington after we had $30 billion of EDD fraud. They don't take the time, these politicians, to care about California. It is shocking, its money and power. And you can call it a neft, you can call it an evil, but the scoreboarders like the good is still dead on the cement, right? But they think they're making people happy with liberal ideals. And that's when I talk about strategic to transactional a bit. And that's pretty important. Because it's sometimes not even bad, shocking for a conservative to say, that liberals have bad ideas. They don't. Look, I've never met anybody in my life says, you know what, man, I'm going to move to Hong Kong because I really like breathing the air. The air is just too clean where I live in the Sierras, and I want to pollute my lungs and drive very tiny cars around the street. No, no one ever does. It sounds really good. We want cleaner airs. We want a rail car that we can grab from our door and not have to hop and pay $7 a gallon. But they're horrible at the execution of these ideas. And when they're not executed, we don't hold them accountable at the ballot box because people don't understand why these things are going wrong. Go ahead.
Okay, so question, I want to jump in there. That's exactly right. They're not held accountable at the ballot box. So that's a fundamental question to me. You know, we could spend hours going through each of these pillars, each of these. I think you did a great exposition, a high level overview of many of the problems we face. And those are really important to document. But coming back to my question, why do we end up disconnecting the politicians' governing performance and the facts on the ground in our state? How does that get disconnected from getting elected, from the ballot booth, from the ballot box? Why are Californians not connecting the condition of their state, in other words, the performance of these politicians who are supposed to be governing? Why do so many Californians not connect the two? Everybody hates what's going on. Everybody hates the expensive electricity. Everyone hates the rising crime rates, the filth, the homelessness, the drug use in the streets. 99% of people hate that. Why do people not connect it at the ballot box?
Easy. I started off with the party of apathy. I want to give you some examples of how bad it is. And unfortunately, right, we historically have relied on the mainstream press, which we've come to call it, for people to gather their information. Less and less people pay attention to it. But can I throw out some statistics here so you understand things, okay?
Sure.
We talk about voter turnout, but that's a misnomer. Democrats practice voter suppression in California. What? No, they're the party. No, they're not. Let me explain. They're winning. So let's give some statistics here, okay? Anybody who doesn't believe me, by the way, take a gander at Ballotpedia. There's 22 million registered voters in California. Gavin Newsom last election, barely 13 million people even bothered to vote for governor. But wait, there's more. Start to look at the offices below. And I realize many people went to public school and are good at math, but they give you the little numbers added up at the bottom. So if you can read, if not, get someone who can read for you, the numbers below. Look at governor. Look at lieutenant governor. Look at secretary of state. As you go down, the aggregate ballot total gets lower and lower. This is how bad it is.
It's very bad. It's very bad.
Getting to my punchline. Each congressional district, no matter where it is in the country, why we do the U.S. Census, has 765,000 people in it, give or take, or about 450,000 voters, give or take. Many congressional offices in California, not the big ones and the big names that you know, have less than 200,000 people vote for that office. Each assembly district in California, okay, has approximately 450,000 population or around 260,000 votes. Now, let me give you an extreme example that's not that extreme. Rob Bonta, who was appointed Attorney General, first then became the incumbent and re-won, passed the office on to his wife, who had to be elected, Mia Bonta. Being unpolitically correct, when the Bontas, when they end up passing on to the great beyond, Satan will probably reject them. He may not take them in. They're basically, I'm going to say, very evil and corrupt people. However, Mia Bonta, in her assembly district, the aggregate number of votes, not her votes, was 41,000 last election, less than a 25% turnout. Got it?
Wow. Wow.
We have a million examples, and people don't look at that. It's the party of apathy. We repeat what we are told. Let's talk about the black vote in California. It's talked about at the top level how we must be politically correct. Do you know how many black voters there are out of 22 million?
I do not.
760,000. Not a lot. And this isn't an evil or racist thing. There's only 2 million black people in California. Okay? Out of 22 million. So we talk about underrepresentation, where we talk about a segment. And by the way, that 750,000 has about a 20% turnout. Hispanic vote is very important. There's 6 million Hispanic voters, 20% turnout. Okay? Wow. And these are the top line turnouts. So what we don't do on our side is we don't buy. So the left knows, because they have control of the machine, that most people don't pay attention to the message. And then the mainstream press turns not the political races into a political debate or an exchange. They turn them into a money race. Oh, this guy's ahead, 20 million to 10 million. This guy's ahead. All right, great. What are they doing with their money? We're doing a podcast/podcast right now, which doesn't cost a hell of a lot. The trouble is getting the message out to people and distributing it. But both sides have bought into the fact that you must use the mainstream media today to distribute your message. And the Democrats outspend us, or the left, not the Democrats. We need to outwit them to get the message out, so the average person who doesn't vote for state assembly, doesn't vote for school board, doesn't vote for these other offices, understands what these offices are and who the candidates are. What the Democrats or the left, and I'm careful when I say that, because each party has extreme cores in it, and the extreme core has taken charge of the Democratic Party. These Democrats, as they say, okay?
Yeah.
What they are really good at is building institutions. They've spent the last 20 years penetrating these lower offices, knowing this knowledge, right? And graduating and making these political people, supporting them, so they push them up from school board, city council, water board, where they have the branding and name recognition and get just enough votes. The conservatives, because we're a bit more cranky and a little less patient, we fight individual battles. Look at this today. I'm ticked off and I'm going to fight. We're the bar fighters, if you will.
Right.
And we're really good to have at the individual battles, but just like terrorists penetrate our country and have lie in wait in what we call sleeper cells, The left builds these sleeper institutions that build money and power over a period of time. And then we wake up and look around and go, what happened? What happened was we don't use today the equalizer of technology to get the word out. And I'm going to give you some extremely simple examples here, okay? When we started the recall, which a recall for everybody out there is an extension of direct democracy. And most people aren't really familiar with what direct democracy is. And part of the problem, when I see you nodding your head, because for everybody out there, I can see a visual, okay? And those of us, many of you that listen to this, go, I know what you do. But most people don't. Most people aren't in the politics, so we make this assumption, just like people in rocket science or engineering make an assumption, you know what a load theory is. No, they don't. They know they drive over a bridge and it doesn't fall down. They just know their lives are crap. So direct democracy is very unique to California. It started in 1913 by the liberals, as a matter of fact. Oddly enough, against Standard Railroad, who was a big corrupt power. Sound familiar? Like Google, Apple, PG&E, same thing we use today. Direct democracy says we can recall any state official as long as, once we get it on the ballot, with 12% of the people that voted for governor last time. And there's little rules and auspices around it. But wait, there's more, as they say in late night TV. We, the people of California, can modify the state constitution with getting on the ballot 8% of the people that voted for governor last time. Note the theme. You don't like a law that Sacramento passed? We can get it. Change that law with a referendum with 5% of the people that voted for governor last time. If you're listening to this and want to make matter illegal, and I see your point, you can do it by passing your own law, by getting it on the ballot with 5% of the people that voted for governor last time. Now, the trouble is, when we started the recall, only like $20 million. And by the way, that's 12%. At the time, we needed about 1.5 million net signatures. I won't go too deep this morning. But what's interesting, when you talk about breaking a mold and we didn't know any better, most of the petitions historically you've seen on legal-sized paper, right?
Right.
And the problem with legal-sized paper is if you look around your house, you don't have legal-sized paper at home. Most people don't, and they're not going to go out and buy a ream at retail of legal-sized paper at $15 to print a petition. So we started looking at the laws around these direct democracy, and we called the attorney and the Secretary of State as we were designing the petition. And I said, I got a question. It looks here like it says legal margins, not legal paper. And he said, you're absolutely correct. I said, so why can't we put a petition in addition to legal, get a legal petition, get some more signatures on the page, but also put one out in letter-sized paper? He said, no reason you can't. I said, well, why hasn't anybody ever done that? Literally. Famous conversation from a couple years ago. He said, no one has ever asked the question before. Now, small as that little change sounds, it allowed us to empower the people of California to take things into their own hands. Fair enough?
Yes.
Now, okay, so there you go. Step one. Step two, we built a website and a brand called Recall Gavin 2020. And this is also interesting because when you talk about getting the word out, right? People go, we have to go door to door. Yeah, I told you politics, we go door to door. We go talking to Nixon and the Reagan years. You're like, well, they're kind of both dead. Who goes door to door anymore? And they go, well, no, Helms threads are gone, fuller brush is gone. In fact, I got to be honest with you, the Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses, maybe me personally, they've just given up on my soul, don't even come to my door anymore. They email me. And I'm like, why don't we email everybody? And I go, you can't do that. And I go, and why can't we do that? Well, if you don't want to go door to door, because when you think about the number of households in California, it's pretty daunting to go door to door to do anything. Hell, even the Girl Scouts go and wait for you at the mall now, and that's where we ended up going to collect petitions, but I'll get back to that. Model yourself after the Girl Scouts. You go farther. They don't come to your door anymore, right? None of the Girl Scouts knock on your door stealing cookies. So we said mailers. They said, yes, mailers. We use mailers in the political business. And I said, well, that's interesting. I said, why do you do that? Well, because we use them for the rest of the mailers. And I said, I'm kind of confused here because I have a marketing background and I don't know anything about politics. But at my age, which again, I met Ben Franklin's son, I get 3 kinds of mail. It's all on bad decisions. You haven't changed your oil, you have the wrong life insurance, or get to be my age, where do you plan on being buried? So most of my mail goes in the garbage, which back in the day when we used direct mail in marketing is why we had a 2% rate of return. I'm like, why don't we use email? They go, you can't do that. I said, and why can't we do that? Well, they use mailers. The reason they use mailers is mailers cost $2 a piece. And the political cabal, including the party, which is why you get mails from Jessica Patterson, right? Yeah. They discovered they make money on the mailers. They overprice them because they're political, you know. I didn't know the postman charged more for delivering political mail. And they make a 16 to 17% rebate on mailers, which cost $2 a piece. So I'm like, why don't we use email to tell everybody about our website and ask them to volunteer and send them an email where they can print out their own petition 8.5 by 11 and mail it into us instead of me mailing to them with them using their own stamp. And they go, well, okay, hold on, dude. Put me on hold, the virtual and my comedy skit here. Okay, then we gotta die. Who's going to die is that data. Like, cool. And the data might cost me like a crack dealer. Good data. Good stuff, man. I'm like, really? How much is your stuff? It's 100,000 names. It's like $8,000. I go, well, I kind of need about 4 million emails. Where do you get your stuff from? I get it from Fred. Call Fred. You get how it goes. Do you know how much all 22 million records cost from the Secretary of State each quarter?
No idea.
$30. Now we have a BAC, a big ass computer, so we could take them, extract the emails, and then build a way to email everybody, which cost a penny a piece. Now that translates today to what I say in politics. The problem is you have to get the message out. The people that are running for office, the turnout is so low. Because these candidates on our side are convinced they have to go door to door. Their territory's too big. It's California, not New Hampshire, not Montana, where the voters, Alaska has one congressperson, and that territory's too big to cover. If you get Anchorage, you're going to win an election. We have to use modern marketing techniques, just like McDonald's does, so we can get the message out, what people are voting on, what the issues are, and empower them. And then I can use modern marketing. We got to the point in the recall where we have traffic for about 3 months of 1 million people a month to the website. Walmart called, asked to borrow our marketing department. I'm kidding, of course, or am I? Got it? And that's why the party of apathy continues to rule and people don't vote. Yeah, the issues are pretty basic. Who the hell is happy with our tax rate? Who the hell is happy with our crime rate? Who, frankly, is happy with much of anything that goes on in California? But the reality is, most people don't realize to change it. Let's talk about the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles. What's the Board of Supervisors? Every county's got one. And in Los Angeles, where, by the way, all elections run through LA, and LA has the lowest turnout of any county, period, end of sentence.
Really?
Re-elected, and well, let me pick Garcetti because people know his name. He was elected with a 14% turnout, and nobody liked him and wondered how the hell he got in there. Okay? The Board of Supervisors controls 10 million people, bigger than 38 states, has a budget of $44 billion, slightly more than I made last week. Let me be clear. And controls the jails, the district attorney, the voting mechanism. Yet, the average Board of Supervisors person is elected with about a 25% turnout.
Wow.
We don't do the job of getting our message out in an economical way that we want to, because political corruption on the left, hey, they're winning. Why do they want to drive voter turnout? On the right, hey, we're stupid and we don't realize the institutions we're up against, and we fight it, kind of like how the Americans beat the British. We travel in the same straight line, waiting to get picked off, because that's the way we were taught to go to battle, while the Americans won their freedom way back when, in 1776, 78, right? Not that I remember it live, let me be perfectly clear. Because we learned different tactics. We need to use those tactics today. And that's what we did in the recall, and that's where I'm going on your podcast. We have a better message. We have a message which unites Californians. The challenge is getting the message out.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So I think it sounds like what you're telling me, with all that great exposition there, what you were mentioning is we need to basically take our learnings from the recall and build on them, and we need to try to be a little bit more clever, right? Instead of just pounding our head in, doing the same thing over and over that the political class recommends or says, or they get paid to promote this. That's not working, clearly. We want to build on the success of the Recall 2020 campaign, Recall Newsom. And I think you're right. I think it's time to try some metaphorical guerrilla tactics, if you will. It's time to get a little bit more nimble, like you're saying, and not just keep charging into the same bayonets that are arrayed at us, going onto the field in a linear, old-fashioned way, just going out there to set ourselves up to fail. Because that's the conventional wisdom, as you mentioned, dating back to the Nixon and the Reagan days. Yeah, I think it's time to evolve on that. Let me ask you then, we've got this guy called Gavin Newsom that might have aspirations, certainly seems to have aspirations that are outside of California. How do his future ambitions affect what's going on in California right now? It seems weird. Like, I don't know the pulse of what's going on. I don't know if the lieutenant governor is hovering, or measuring drapes for the executive office in Sacramento yet. So I don't know exactly what's going on up there. But yeah, what is that intersection? What does that look like between Newsom's ambitions and then what we do as a state going into, well, not 2024, but beyond 2026, I think, when he'd be up for re-election, allegedly, right?
No,
I think it's 26.
26, he's out. But let me...
He's done. Yes.
This is an interesting point here. First off, I'm going to show you up, which I shouldn't do, the host of a radio show. We'll see if you get this right. Who's the Lieutenant Governor of California?
Eleni Kounalakis, I believe.
And most people think that's a Greek pastry. It's important
Right.
Kounalakis, who's lining up like Newsom served time as lieutenant governor, again, a stepping stone to a higher office, comes from an incredibly rich family. And coming from an incredibly rich family, okay, she, again, bought her way in office, just like Newsom did with the Gettys. All right? So let's be clear on that. We have people running our state that, again, don't stand in line in the 7-Eleven, have never been to a dry cleaners, tell us to put our arms down while they're surrounded by armed guards and tons of others behind them. Here's Newsom's problem, okay? He gets elected, by the way. I want to be very clear that for the environmentalists out there, that if Newsom ever washes his hair, there will be a large oil spill that will certainly pollute most of our beaches. So let's hope that when he does bathe, it's in another state. But the
Get the Dawn dish soap ready.
there you go. You would hope so, right? There'll be seagulls flying everywhere. But the reality is this. Gavin lives on an image, okay? And the problem is Gavin cannot solve the problems of California. In fact, he makes them worse. So let's dwell on that for 1 second before I answer your question. The poverty rate in California, as judged by the U.S. Census, the baseline is 17.3%. Let me be clear, it's 17.3. It is the highest percentage poverty rate by definition, the most people of anywhere in the country, and it's gone up since Gavin's come in office. That is $39,000 a year, by the way, which is very hard to survive on. But there's more. California and other groups and the U.S. Census have something called a functional poverty rate. That functional poverty rate in California is $60,000 a year, okay? 39, almost 40% of all Californians live on or at the edge of poverty. It's the arms around that. And since Gavin been in his office, it gets worse. And so while it sounds really good to raise the minimum wage, he actually has accelerated this drive into poverty by accelerating inflation. I'll stop there. So Gavin knows this. He may not know it, but I'm assuming he's got people around that do. So he can't solve the problems of California. And no matter how you really look at it, as people go, hey, dude, I'm paying more for beer. I'm paying more for chicken. I'm paying more for gas, which is ridiculous. A whole other show I have to do with you, right? They know they're paying more and it's accelerating, and our functional poverty rate is going up. Why more homeless people live in our streets, why the things I talked about get worse. So Gavin is in a quandary here. Right now, he is governor of California, allegedly, although he doesn't spend much time here, and California is getting worse. So here's the problem. Come the next presidential election in 2028, Gavin Newsom will not be governor of California. He will be basically a rich, unemployed politician. Shocking, okay? And he won't be able to run as the governor of California. And his policies, which are accelerating, is my point, at a rapid rate. It's not a great, well, how's it, how that was governor of California? Wow, we're still out of water. Crime is up. Our power is going out. I'm now paying $9 a gallon for gas. Not a great record to run on as a non-incumbent. Now, the problem Gavin has in front of him is Joe Biden. And of course, he's delivering Joe every day really bad food and things that are not heart healthy for Joe, hoping that something happens to Joe. But he can't go against Joe. And even around the country, most people are going, Biden, really? And Biden's going, what? He has no clue what's going on, whole other show. So the reality is, Gavin, of course, has political aspirations, but it's not going to work out well for him. So what he's doing, instead of doing his damn job, being governor of California, he's running all over like other people like Koulakis and other state officials have already started their campaign for 2026 instead of doing their damn job trying to make California a better place to live in.
Yeah, a fundamental problem. That's exactly right. And he's out in 2026. Yeah, that's right. Obviously, he's not, I misspoke earlier, he's not running for a third term, God forbid.
Term limits.
Yeah, term limits, of course. 2026, he's out. And no, I think that's a really good point that you make. Right now, what we're dealing with is people are already like lining up. They're already beginning to pre-campaign or even campaign, as it were, essentially for governor, as he figures out what's going on. Yeah, did you want to say one more thing, Mike?
When you want to roll me in here, I'll get my final blast off here because I know it's
Yeah.
going to come like radio. It's a soft ending.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and start wrapping up. But yeah, hit me with certainly any final thoughts, and then once again, make sure to tell everyone listening what you do on radio. You're on KABC, I believe. What are your shows? And then any links, anything else you want to share. Let us have all that.
For everyone out there listening to this, Rebuild California is a movement of the people. We're funded by the people. We do radio shows that are block radio that we ask people to contribute to keep us on the air. Outrage is on KABC Friday nights. You get the theme. We bring in people to give them a voice. I do SOS Los Angeles with Angela Marston on Saturdays. And Sunday mornings, we do Save Los Angeles with John Cruikshank. Excuse me. In our Facebook groups, if you're on Facebook, and don't lie, we have about 150,000 people go to Rebuild California. There's a group per county and a public page. Follow me on Twitter at Mother Mike. Send us a few bucks and get involved. Everyone out there, it's up to you to do something. And understand the party of apathy will crush you more than the liberal left will. It's your state. Moving to Tennessee, Oklahoma won't help you. California has one good export, and that's bad politicians. And Gavin is waiting to be shipped to Washington, D.C., just like Kamala Harris. How's that working out for you? It's not working out well. Rebuild California, of which I'm the co-chair, and Orrin Heaton is the chair. We are the people's movement. We want to get people like Eric Early elected for state senate. One-party rule ends badly, and that's what you're seeing in California. And if you want to change one-party rule, join the people of California. Rebuild California is us, all standing united, regardless of political party, regardless of diversity, regardless of age. We must do what we have to do within legal reason to make changes so we can enjoy the weather and take our state back. Because if you aren't there to take back the state of California, yes, they are going to take your whole damn country from you. RebuildCalifornia.com, outrage 7 to 9 Pacific time on KABC 790 tonight. We broadcast on @NetterMike, LinkedIn Mike Netter, Rebuild California on our Facebook pages. Tune in, join us, and do what you can to help make not only our state, your country again.
Awesome. Well, I love the message. I love your passion, and everyone step up, get involved in any way you can. Minor, major, start a movement, join a movement, just get involved. And that's what I'm trying to do more and more so. And Mike Netter, I really appreciate your time this morning and coming on. Thank you very much for joining us on California Liberty Project.
My pleasure. Look forward to being back if you ain't.
Awesome. I will have you. Absolutely. Have a great weekend, and thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.